Dear viewers, welcome to Sip and Chat. My name is Atem Dhieu Dau, and today with me, I will be chatting and sipping with Atem Dhieu Dau. Atem is a drug and substance abuse researcher who is doing quite great in terms of doing research on drugs and substance abuse in South Sudan. So Atem is also one of the young people that is inspired to bring change to South Sudan in different ways. Atem is an Australian, but he decided to come back home to make sure at least he contributes to the development of this country. So far, without further ado, allow me to welcome Atem on Sip and Chat and start the conversation. Give me a minute as I send Atem an invite to make sure he's part of this conversation. Okay, Atem is working currently with the Ministry of Health, and he's so passionate about this conversation and is willing to be part and parcel of trying to bring change when it comes to drug abuse in South Sudan. So Atem will be joining us shortly, and to have this conversation going on. So basically, Atem, let me reach out to him as we continue. Yes. So give us a minute. Atem is coming online, and they'll be with us shortly. So as I said earlier, in South Sudan, we had a conversation last weekend to discuss about drugs, youth and drugs in South Sudan, and we talked about how drugs can affect the development of this country, and how it can affect the human resource of the country. We've seen that a lot of youth have come out to talk about drugs abuse, and some of the youth that came out, most of them were drug abusers, but they managed to change their lives and do something about it. So basically, today is part 2 of this conversation, which is titled Youth and Drugs in South Sudan. And Atem is an expert in terms of drugs abuse and substance, and he will tell us more about what drugs are and what types of drug and categories of drugs that we abuse in South Sudan, and what can be done to make sure these drugs do not affect the human resource and do not affect youth as it is. We also know that in South Sudan, Atem is here. Hi Atem, welcome to Sip and Chat.
Hi, thanks, Atem. Thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. So Atem, I've introduced you as a researcher in drug abuse and substance abuse in South Sudan, and one of the person that has been working hard to see that South Sudanese are informed or enlightened about drug abuse. And last week we had a conversation regarding drugs abuse, and it was titled Youth and Drugs in South Sudan. You are an expert in this, and we want to know from you, what is drug abuse to start with? How do you define drug abuse or substance abuse?
Oh, thanks for asking that question. Drug abuse is actually the misuse of drugs, like overusing the drugs in a way that there's a risky behavior that attached to it, and then there's a consistent kind of behavior that continue regardless of a risk that come attached to that behavior. And
Okay,
then
that's quite interesting. Go ahead.
and then with that, people that use or misuse the drugs, they don't actually pay attention to the health outcome. So the effect of alcohol or other substances they are using at that time. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's simple as
In
that.
South Sudan, Atem, as you've been doing a lot of research in terms of drugs, before we go there, I would want us to know from you, who is Atem Dhieu Dau, because this is a youth platform where we talk about youth activities, and as one of the youth, I don't want us to dive into the activity or into the session, but just to know about you, who is Atem, in brief, just in some few minutes.
Atem Dhieu Dau is a South Sudanese and is a researcher at the same time. I do research for everything because I'm looking forward to make sure that the healthcare system is improved through the research, and that's how I describe myself as a researcher.
That was quite brief. Okay, Atem,
Yeah.
you are an Australian citizen. You're Australian South Sudanese, and you decided to
Yeah.
leave Australia to come back home. Tell us briefly about that.
Oh, thank you. I've been in Australia for quite some time. I've been in Australia for close to 20 years, and I did my university there, and I worked there. And I'm very sure that I've contributed in Australia, both academically and economically. And then, and given the facts that I've not participated in South Sudan war, is my opportunity to come back to my country and make sure that I contribute into the development of the country. It's either way, whether I'm paying tax, then the tax that I'm paying, they will help other people. If
Yeah.
it is the knowledge that I'm giving on to my people, then it is a contribution, and I'm looking forward to have opportunity and contribute. So I'm happy that I'm back home. Home is home, regardless of the challenges. Home is home, and I love it here. Thank you.
Definitely, I'm really impressed with that attempt. You know,
Yep.
it's quite good living outside there, and most of us are yearning to stay outside. But there are a few of us who wanted to come back home and do something. So that is really a big thank you. I know you would have done better in Australia, but you felt like you are needed in South Sudan, and your services are very important. Of course, you have done a lot in Australia, but you felt like home is the best, and you need to contribute in different ways. So thanks for coming back. Atem, tell us what types of drugs are commonly used in South Sudan as we talk right now. What are the common drugs that our people are abusing?
Um, Thanks you. To start with, there's quite a number of drugs that are because the illicit drugs, cocaine is very rampant in the country. There's everywhere in a pocket of the country. Weed, there's they call it ganja at some point, and in the street they have a nickname of K20. That's the street name they are using. And then the nicotine is in two ways. There's a tobacco. They call it a water five, and sometimes they call it chicha. It's very rampant wherever that you go in the country, and there's a negative impact on that. And then the big part of the substance that is being abused by young people is alcohol. So
Okay.
there are illicit drugs and legal drugs that are used.
Okay, you mentioned a very good point of shisha, which is common and almost most of our youth are using it. So, what is the impact of shisha in our lives? Because I've been receiving a lot of different facts about shisha, and I would want to hear from a researcher what impact do shisha have on youth in South Sudan?
Um, Chicha is very addictive. Once you touch chicha, you hook onto it very easily. It has a very toxic nicotine. It causes a lot of but it has a very deleterious effect. It causes heart diseases at the same time, cancers that are throat cancers and mouth cancers, and it has a carbon monoxide that it comes out from that, and then the carbon monoxide will react to the blood at the same time, and it causes a blood poison, and sometimes it will cause heart attack to the people. Not only that, it has a negative impact on the reproductive system of the people, both male and female. For a man, it affects the sperm count. So it affects two sides of the sperm. One is the head of the sperm, which is the engine of the sperm. That's mitochondria. That is actually affected by chicha itself, and then it cannot move. And then it affects the tail of the sperm as well, of which the sperm cannot swim. So the sperm will be deposited outside of the vaginal, and that one, it has a negative impact on the reproductive system for a male. And for a female, it has a negative impact on the uterus. It affects the lining of the uterus. So it may cause miscarriages. At the same time, the child will have a very low weight. So there are a lot that attached to it, and I believe that it's not a good thing to use, but it depends on the environment young people are using it, because it's very cheap. At the same time, people have access in the environment. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of health conditions that come attached to that.
Okay. How many cigarettes are equivalent to one puff of shisha?
Um, the 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 shisha that you smoke for 20 minutes, it's absolutely equivalent to between 100 to 200 cigarettes that you are smoking at the same time. So
What?
it's very dangerous, as you can see. It causes a lung cancer for that reason. So once you smoke shisha for 20 minutes of that hit, then it means that you have inhaled 100 to 200 cigarettes.
Wow, that is quite
Yeah,
scary. Okay, how
yeah,
about that? If you look at shisha, you look at alcohol and other substances like you mentioned, marijuana, or you call it bangi. Uh,
yeah.
what is the commonality? Why do you feel like alcohol is the most abused drug in South Sudan? What could be the reason as to why that is happening?
Um, the problem with alcohol is that alcohol is one of the the consumers products that is widely available in South Sudan. And wherever that you go in South Sudan, every shop that you have access to, there is there's alcohol.
Yeah.
There's that is small alcohol with the red top, and there's also a local brew of which they are very cheap, and every young person or every person have access to it. So and that one itself, it increases a burden of consumption in the country. So and
Okay.
because there's no regulation that is actually regulating the marketing and the selling of alcohol, because as young as 15 can have access to alcohol, whether in the shop or in the street. So
Okay.
and that one is very dangerous.
Very dangerous. What would our government do to regulate consumption of alcohol, and not only alcohol, even other drugs? What do you think can be done by our government to make sure we regulate? Because at some point we need to control the consumption by either putting in place some regularities or some laws, and even maybe one of them could be high taxes. What do you think can be done to make sure at least the consumption is managed and is not abused?
Um, Honestly speaking, alcohol itself is actually destroying our young people. We in the next 2 to 3 years, we will have a generation that is actually being consumed by alcohol or drugs. And not to see that happening, then is to make sure that there are regulations in place to make sure that whoever is selling alcohol, there must be a rule that is guiding that person to make sure that he or she cannot sell it to the underage,
Yep.
and to make sure that like the availability of alcohol, the alcohol will be available, but they have to be scrutinized exactly because the local brew is actually cheaper and people have access to it. Then the process that alcohol is manufactured should be looked into very carefully, and then the marketing itself, you know, it's it have to be dealt with. There must be a implementation of how such uh, products come to the country. They have to make sure that the taxation should be increased and the prices have to be high to make sure that young people will not have access to. And then it's affordable and it is legal, but there must be rules that come attached. There must be laws that come attached to it. For example, some people drinks. After they finish their drinking, they pick up their car keys and then they drive. And then after the driving, the alcohol will have a negative impact. It will interfere with your brain, how you think and how you judge and how you feel. So then in the process of going home, then you may get involved in car accident. And that car
Definitely.
accident actually will actually injure you and the other road users. So the drink driving rules should be there in place because people should not drink and drive. And there are a lot of things that comes attached to that.
Okay, Atem, this is quite interesting. Let's talk briefly about addiction. How do you define addiction? And at what point of my life will I feel like I'm getting addicted to alcohol or any other substance that I'm abusing?
Um, Addiction is a complex chronic brain condition that's actually influenced by genes and the environment. And that is actually characterized by the use of substance. And you see, it's very continuous, regardless of the harmful consequences that come attached to it.
Definitely. So for us to be able to understand that we need to create awareness and we need to inform our youth not to be abusing these drugs, because as you said earlier, drug abuse is very rampant, and in the next few years we will see that our youth are consumed by drugs because there is no regulations in place. What do you think, what are the activities you think we can do to engage the youth and let them understand that drugs and substance abuse could lead to many unproductive activities? What activities do you think we can put in place to at least create awareness among the youth in this country?
Um, there are a number of activities. You make at least one of the best example is to have a peer support group. That's activity, that's a youth to youth program, and to make sure that the youth themselves will talk, and to make sure that they have a better understanding of what alcohol and other drugs is and what effect it has. Then and then the family has to be part of that as well. There must be a community engagement such that the families and the community will have a better understanding, and to make sure that the sign, like if one of the community member have a behavioral change, then they have to deal with that to make sure that they seek help. So the community has to be educated about the health literacy to make sure that once there is a condition such as this, then you have to seek help. You have to see the medical practitioner. You have to look at other services. But the problem here is that there are no rehabilitation services that are available in the country. There are no treatment facilities, and that one is the biggest problem, that for us to succeed and to make sure that we are addressing the issue of drug and alcohol, there must be rehabilitation and treatment services that are available in the country. And these are the activities that are needed, and to make sure that young people are engaged on the activities such as sport, and to make sure that they are physically fit. So it's quite a number. This is a very collective kind of work. It's not only for a government, and it has to include the people in the community and the families themselves to make sure that it affects them.
Wow, that is quite interesting, Atem. And we cannot go without mentioning this. In our situation, you find that people who are addicted or people who are abusing substances are being arrested in prisons or in cells. And it beat my understanding, because these people need help and they're suffering from a condition. But we end up even making more mistakes by subjecting them to pain and a lot of torture, because if you arrest someone in prison, someone who needs help medically, it becomes a different story. So what do you think can be done? Is it really legible to arrest people who are suffering from drug and substance abuse, or what do you think could be an option since we have no rehabs? What else can we do? And do you think that arresting them is a good option? Is it human?
Thanks for that. Honestly speaking, prison is not for the sick people.
Yep.
All right. Prison is for a criminal, those who have committed a crime. Sick people are taken to the hospital.
Yep.
So taking a child to prison because they're alcoholic, or maybe they have a drug use problem, is a short-term kind of solution.
Yeah.
Because you try to break the chain of having access to that.
Yeah.
But then again, the question remains: we don't have a correctional services in the prison.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have a correctional services activities or services in the prison, then you are not solving the problem. Once you notice that as a family member or a community member that one of the community member is having a problem with alcohol or other substances, the only way is to make sure that you seek help from the other medical practitioners instead of sending them to jail, because sending them to jail traumatize the problem itself, because it doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
So you are sending a sick people to prison rather than seeking help from the other health practitioners. So we make sure that our people should design the activities. For example, if one of the sons is alcoholic and you are a community member, sit down and engage that child. Make sure that you said, okay, fine, tomorrow we are going to this activity. For example, today there's a wrestling that is happening in Newside. If you have your son or your brother that is alcoholic, you make sure that you take him there, you engage him, make him busy that day. When you
Definitely.
come home, he will be tired and then he will go to bed. Tomorrow you have another activity. Try to break the chain of how they are connected in the community, and that will solve the problem. Taking them to
Okay.
prison, in my perspective, doesn't solve the problem. The solution is with the community. Seek help when there is a problem.
Okay, I think there are allegations going on that these local brews nowadays, women who are brewing these local brews are also putting in some slippers to make it more hot and make it more pleasing to those who are buying it. And you find that they're cutting slippers, these new slippers, sandals, and they put it inside the alcohol. They also use pampers. These are allegations. I didn't confirm any of this, but these are conversations happening. So there are some people that who are saying these women also go and buy pampers, and this inner part of the pampers which they remove and put inside the alcohol. The same thing to slippers or sandals. And this could be more dangerous to the health of people. Do you think these kind of practices need to be regulated, and also we need to be careful exactly how we brew alcohol? Apart from the fact that it is harmful, we are adding in more harmful substances like slippers, which are made out of chemicals, and the inner part of pampers, which also affect. So, do you think this is not as scary as such?
Um, like I said early on, the preparation process should be scrutinized by 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 the legal or maybe by the government to make sure that they are well prepared, whether in the factory or at local. Um, with the few number of interviews that I have had, there are those allegations, but they are not proven.
Yeah.
I treat them as rumors until proven otherwise. Um, you see, that one is if that practice is happening, then we are putting more harm to people,
Yeah.
and you see people die of alcoholic hepatitis because it will affect liver more than anything. So I've heard about those, and I treat them as rumors, but it's still the government have to do something about the process of the program itself. So
Definitely.
those are the rumors, and
Yeah.
we are not sure whether they are true or not.
Yeah. And if they are true,
And
then
there
it's
are
really very
rumors as
scary.
and there are rumors as well. They use the centripede, you know, they call them always, and then I believe that some people are using that, but there is no evidence. There's still a rumors in the number of interviews that I have had, but I'm here to prove to establish the case.
Okay, thanks you a lot, Atem. We have a comment from Clement, from Qual Clement on Facebook. He's saying that very educative and it's absolutely a public health talk. Hope it finds a wider audience, especially the younger persons under the age of 18, because our youth need to know the effects of using these drugs and substance abuse. This SIP and Chat is educating us all. Thank you for this. This is a comment from one of our viewers on Facebook. And thank you so much, Paul Kellerman. Of course, SIP and Chat is all about talking about issues of concern affecting our youth today in this country. So, Atem, let's talk about your program. You are doing a mental health program and you have a page on Facebook. Briefly tell us something about that.
Um, Mental health space is one of the pages that I'm starting, and the first project that I did my own self is to look at the prevalence of mental disorders among the healthcare workers. That article is yet to be published, and it's in progress. You see, the reason I have interest in that is to make sure that you transform lives of those who have drugs and alcohol use disorders themselves, their families, and the wider community. Because if we have a safer community that the drug use is actually reduced, then we will have a healthy society. And this one will help to make sure that everyone will have access to all the health services they need. For
Thank you a lot, Atem.
example, it's everyone right to
Yeah.
have access to a mental health services, both
Yeah.
rehabilitation and the treatment services. But to my surprise and to inform you that in our country, we have less than 4 psychiatrists in the country. We
Less
have
than 4
less than
psychiatrists
10,
in the whole country.
yeah, in the whole country. And then, to be very honest, in Juba, there's one lady that's very busy, and I really appreciate her hard work. She's working so hard to make sure that every person who has a mental health problem see her. She works so hard, and she's doing very good. Psychologists themselves, they are not very many. Social workers, they are not very many. It's a mean that there is a need to make sure that we have these services at the community level, and to make sure that all of us will have access. It's your responsibility wherever you are to make sure that be your brother keeper, be your sister keeper. When you see unusual behavior that is happening around you, you make sure that you give a talk. Talk to that person in a way that you really want to help that person. And after you talk to the person, don't make it a big problem. Make sure that it remains between you and that person, because it will give you another chance to talk to that person, and the person will be open to you to make sure that he will tell you what are the problems. And then once you identify the problem, then you will help the person to seek help. You will not ask someone to seek help when you don't know what is happening. You will not know what that person is thinking unless you talk to the person. So that's the best thing I think.
Okay, Atem, this is quite interesting. I am really impressed on how you're doing it and how you're trying to help in your own different ways. And it's very worrying that we have only 4 psychiatrists in the country. I'm surprised today to hear that. And I think we need to do more in terms of engaging youth on drug abuse and substance abuse. So basically, to this point, we are coming to the end of our program. But as you know, Sip and Chat is a traditional social platform for youth. And we always ask one question. If someone want to know about Atem Dhieu, or if at all you have to talk to the public about 3 things people don't know about you, what could you say? 3 things that no one knows about Atem Dhieu. 3 things.
Oh, by the way, I'm a fan of boxing, so I love boxing. And
are you a fan or a boxer?
I was once a boxer, but I'm not a boxer now. And the only thing that I like about boxing is it disciplines you. It gives you a discipline of not fighting people. It gives you that kind of discipline, and that's another way of a psychotherapy that one should have. The other thing is I love reading, because the truth is that after you finish your university degree, all your professors remain in the university, and then you have to read and discover a lot of things, discover who you are in the books. And the last one is that I love research. I like looking into the information, do data analysis, and discover new things. Thank you.
Wow, that is very great. Okay, Atem, as we come to the end of the program, what would be your last advice or last message to the audience outside, to the youth in South Sudan, and everyone that might watch this video later?
Okay. To the youth of South Sudan, my age mate and the youngest, it's your responsibility to look after yourself and to look after your brother. Craving for a drugs or alcohol, it doesn't help a problem. It doesn't solve the problem. If you drink today, believing that you are solving your problem, you wake up tomorrow morning and the problem remains. The problem is not solved. Be your brother keeper. Discipline yourself. If you take 2 bottles a day, reduce it to 1. The next day, pretend that you don't have money. You will find it. Be your brother keeper.
Wow.
Healthy life, healthy future. Once you are healthy, you have a very healthy future. Thank you.
Wow. That is interesting, Atem. Thank you so much. And our viewers today with me was Atem Dhieu Dau is a researcher, and Atem is an Australian who left Australia to come back to South Sudan and contribute in his own ways So thank you, Atem, for being with us, and we wish you all the best in helping our people trying to create an environment of learning about drugs and substance abuse in South Sudan. And we wish to bring you back next time and talk about it more. And thanks for your time, and may you have a wonderful day. And we really appreciate your inputs today on this program. And as you all know, that Sip and Chat is a youth platform where we talk about youth concerning issues in the country and any other trending issue that might affect youth in one way or the other. So otherwise, Atem, thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, brother. May God bless you.
Thank you.